Hello and welcome to episode number 42, the final episode of the epic Saving Sunderland, the homegrown heroes save, where I attempted to turn Sunderland into a top six side using only players that represent the British and Irish nations, England, Scotland, Wales, Republic of Ireland or Northern Ireland. We can class this save as a successful failure. The successful part is we stayed up through all four seasons, briefly skirting with relegation in one season, but ultimately we were fairly safe with 3 or 4 games to go every time. The failure was that we never got anywhere near the European places. We never got anywhere near any sort of silverware either. So a successful failure is probably a fairly safe way of summing this up. In this episode, we are going to review the save in its entirety, look back on the 4 seasons, offer some concise, considered opinion, and then potentially talk around what else is going to come up on this channel. All good stories will start in the beginning. We started this save in 2016-2017 season away against West Bromwich Albion, and we got a lovely little 2-1 victory, followed up with another victory, a 4-1 at home to Everton. I thought, blimey, we can actually achieve this in the first season, get Sunderland top six. However, we then got brought down to earth with a crunching defeat to Leicester, another defeat to Arsenal, and a defeat to Chelsea. Early season, we were fairly consistent, picking up quite a few draws, high-scoring ones, 3-3, 2-2, 2-2. Before we hit Christmas, and it's a disappointing Christmas time, losing to Man United, West Ham, and Tottenham, before ending 2016 with a victory at home against West Bromwich Albion. We then went into 2017. January was a good month. However, the rest of it was not so great. We only picked up 3 wins, and they were in the space of 3 games over about 18 days. 3-1 victories over Burnley, Watford and Stoke. Apart from that, we didn't do particularly well, ending the season in 11th position, which was not bad for his first season. If you look back on real life, this was the season where Sunderland went down. So the fact that we finished 11th was really, really positive. The shining light was Jermaine Defoe scoring an impressive 29 goals in all competitions. He really was the difference, and no other player has got anywhere near that amount of goals since. So as this is a homegrown heroes save, I had lots of work to do at the start, getting rid of the overseas players that I could never use. I sold £21 million worth of talent in that first season, and that was probably the most enjoyable part of this save, knowing that I had to get these guys off the wage bill and negotiating with clubs and trying to get the best deal I could possibly get. Some guys went for peanuts. Seb Larson went up for £500,000, which was really just a file sale to get him out of the club. But I'd probably say my best bit of business was with Wahhabi Khazri, where I managed to get him out on loan 2 or 3 times before selling him off for several £1,000,000. So that brought in quite a bit of money. But we'll talk about the players that came in at this stage. So in the first season, I had a lot of fun right at the start trying to bring in anyone I could think of. First signing was Ruben Loftus-Cheek from Chelsea, and he was a little bit of a disappointment, I think. Maybe my expectations were too high. He only played 18 times, average rating of 6.75. Didn't really start many, 7 starts, 14 sub appearances in all competitions. My first money signing was Marcus Bettinelli. I definitely paid far too much for this guy. 3.2 million is far too much for a backup goalkeeper who only played 5 times. If I was clever, I'd have got him on instalments deal, and I could probably easily got him in on that instalments deal. But you live and learn. He was back up to Jordan Pickford, never really got close enough to the first team squad, or never got close enough to ousting Pickford from the side. And I brought in another keeper in the summer to strengthen that competition. Charlie Adam was probably the signing of the save. 126 games, 18 goals. Brought him in, he just turned 30, just about. Winding down his career, but he was absolutely brilliant for me. In his second season, he was in the team of the year, 7.46 at an average rating, and averaged just under 7 the rest of the time. A really solid player for me. And at 2.3 million, that is a bargain, and he's still involved in the squad today. Then brought in Gary Hooper, who is a favourite of mine in real life from his spell at Hereford. He took us to promotion pretty much. He did okay for us. He only scored 8 goals in 55 games. He's not a Premier League striker, but I played him as a shadow striker and a sub, and he did a decent enough job for me. Pitched in with the odd goal here and there, so he got 8 overall. He was a good player, good squad player for me. I'm happy with what he achieved. Next one to highlight is Reece Wiggins, left back who came in from Bournemouth. Had a really good first season, averaging 6.92 over that season, but was never really able to get into the team from there. The second season, we brought in some more strength in that left back position. In the January of season 2, when we brought in John Flanagan, and we also had Courtney House, who could also play there. Speaking of House, I have no idea if I've said his name correctly over the last 42 episodes, but for me, he's House. Could be Horse, but I'm going to say he's House. Brought in from Wolves the 1st of January, a record signing at that point. He did a very good job for me. Didn't miss many games when he was with the club, though at the moment he does want to leave the club, but thankfully I'm at the end of the save, so I can keep hold of him. Consistency, pretty much. Really good second season. Dipped off a little bit in the third and fourth seasons, but very happy with what he's given me. Very consistent, and will continue to do a job as I continue this save outside of the world of YouTube, as YouTube now looks forward to FM18. I look to the future of the next signing, and that was Jason Malumbi. I had real high hopes for this guy. Brought him in from Brighton for less than £1 million. Sent him out on loan for a couple of times, sent him to one of my feeder clubs as well. He never really performed that well and got a little bit antsy, really wanted to leave the club as well. West Ham came in a couple of times. I sort of said no, I want to keep him for the future. He got really unhappy about that. So then I decided to cut my losses and sell him for 5.75 million. He's had a couple of more loan spells in the Championship and League One, not really performing that well. So I think I did a right decision getting rid of him. I don't think he's quite going to be the player I once hoped he would be, but he's only 20. Potential is still there. And then we come to Jason Cummings, signed in the January of season 1, spent the rest of that season out on loan at Hibernian, came in at the start of the next season and did pretty well. When I say he did pretty well, he started his first season in the Premier League on fire. 5 goals in the first 4 games, mainly coming off the bench as a shadow striker. He was really the success story at that start of season number 2. We were quite inconsistent early doors in this season. It wasn't really until we hit the January and moved into the new year where we started to win some games. 10 victories in 2018 was really positive when you consider how we ended at the end of 2017. From October 17 to the end of December 17, we didn't win a single game, only picking up 3 draws. This save has been epitomised by having some really, really bad runs of form where we just fall to pieces and can't get a positive result. Result of the season in season number 2 was this 6-3 victory over Liverpool. It looked like we'd completely blown it at one point. We went 3-0 up in the first half. Cummings and Adams scoring with the Firmino own goal in between. Before Liverpool got back to 3-3, Daniel Sturridge scoring a hat-trick. And then we scored 3 more. It was the most bizarre game of football I've seen. It was fantastic to watch. And I think it may even have been a live com as well. It was a relatively good season in the end. We finished 9th, which is our best league position we've had. Overall, it was a season where we finished in 9th position. We didn't have a League Cup run yet again. I didn't mention it in the previous season because we crashed out to Northampton. This time round, we crashed out to AFC Wimbledon in the first round, and we were very, very poor. The FA Cup, we didn't have a run because we had Arsenal in the 4th round, and we never beat Arsenal. That's just an impossibility for us. Season 2 transfers, we spent a lot of money and didn't recoup too much either. Jermaine Lenz went for 10 million, Fabio Borini went for 5 million, and we had a few smaller deals going out as well, and a lot of loans, but the main work we did was about players coming in. First off was Izzy Brown coming in from Chelsea. He has done relatively okay for me. He can play anywhere across that midfield, attacking midfield, free or up front, so he's been very versatile for me. We always seem to do well when he's in the side, even though he doesn't do that brilliantly himself. That's always the sense I got when playing him, but if you look at his average ratings, they're pretty decent. Didn't score a huge amount of goals, and for £14 million, maybe slightly disappointing. But he's only 23. He's probably at his peak, but he's a very solid Premier League player for us, and he'll continue to be part of my squad as the years go by. If I do, which I think I'm going to do, continue to play this save offline. Potential is all around Championship, but he's doing a decent job for us, so we'll see how he goes in the future. Joe Wildsmith, who I brought in on the recommendation of the internet, they were saying, I say they, the internet says that this guy was a superstar in the making. He hasn't proved to be as yet. He hasn't been able to get past Jordan Pickford. I've had lots of offers for him from various different clubs for a very small amount of money. I paid nearly £9 million for this guy. Probably again overpaying on goalkeepers. I do have previous Bettinelli shaped form on that one. He's done okay in the games he's played. Played one game in the first season, 6 in the second. Couldn't get past Pickford. That's his main problem. He's out on loan last season. He's out on loan this season. We've got a couple of million for him, or just over £1 million for him so far. I imagine he will have a couple more years with us before moving on. Potentially sell him off, but loan him out, get some money back into the club if I can. We then move on to the younger players that I went to bring in. I cottoned on to the idea of let's search through the regions from every club and try and steal some of them for us. Simon Ford, Adam Webster and David French haven't yet made it to the first team squad in any sort of consistency, but we have had Killian Kelly start to pump his way into the first team squad. He's played the last few games at the end of last season, scoring a couple of goals in the demolishment of QPR, which was in the last episode. He looks to be a very promising young player, still technically not that strong, but mentally and physically decent. Lots of potential about him as well. He will very much be one for the future as we go on and go forward. I then spent £15 million on Harry Arter, coming from relegated Bournemouth. And he's done all right. I expected better from him, I would imagine. I really did think this was the guy that's going to take us on to the next level. First season, just under 7 as an average rating. I always think 7 is the benchmark for a good season. Probably in Football Manager, it's probably a little bit lower than that. I go back to the days of Championship Manager where an average rating of 7 was the bare minimum you'd expect from a good player. 7.7, 7.8 was usually a good season on that game. He's done all right for me, as I say. Not contributed a huge amount of goals, but he's not really a goal-scoring midfielder. He's decent. He's not really been a regular in my side. He's always been the guy who's popped in when there's been an injury or come off the bench. I have preferences in the midfield, and Arter hasn't really been that guy, sadly. Ben Gibson, midfielder. No, Ben Gibson is a centre-back from Middlesbrough. Stole him from the North East rivals for 3.3 million. Really strong first season. Has been a backup player for the last couple of seasons, playing when required. A good, solid centre-half to have for a Premier League club. Luke Garbett came in from Everton for just under £1 million and was sold off a year later. Didn't really do a huge amount, couldn't really get past Reece Wiggins, and I signed John Flanagan as well in the January. Talking of Flanagan, John Flanagan, left back, right back, really strong, good player for me in the first season. 14 games, 7.06, really thought I'd signed a player that's going to be with me for many years to come. Second season, he was fairly poor and inconsistent, only playing 10 games. Then Tottenham started to sniff around in the January, and I cut my losses. 13.25 million, a good deal for us. He did nothing for Tottenham before being sold to Crystal Palace. You may wonder why I'm not mentioning every player I've signed. If I'm not mentioning them, it's because they didn't really do anything for me. We move on to season number 3, and this season started really well indeed. We beat Manchester City. We had Danny Ings on absolute sensational form, if I could get my words out. He scored 8 goals in the first 7 games, including 2 against Man City to win that game. And I thought, oh, we've got a player here. He even scored against Liverpool. We beat him 4-1, which was a superb result. And we fell away. That's the only way you could describe this season. We actually had a decent cup run as well. We beat Bradford and we beat Walsall. We actually won some games in the League Cup before capitulating against our North East rivals Newcastle 5-1. That was a tough result and it really affected us. From that point on, we could never really get any league consistency going. It was a draw, it was a defeat, it was a win. There was never really any sort of consistency all the way for the rest of the season, really. We had 2 games against Hull and Villa in the April where we got a vital 6 points in the end, which did ultimately secure our league safety. We finished 15th overall, but when you consider we won 4 of the first 7 and still only finished 15th with 6 defeats in a row, 11 defeats in 14, it was a poor end to the season. The FA Cup was actually a highlight. We got our revenge on Newcastle, beating them 4-2 at home. We then knocked out Burnley. We got 6 goals past Burnley, which is a sensational result. Apart from the fact that in the Championship we should be beating them anyway, but it doesn't matter. And we almost beat Man City. We got defeated in extra time. That's the closest we got to any sort of silverware, the 6th round of the FA Cup. I did feel it was my year, and as soon as I thought that, we lost. Life happens at times. We now move on to season number 4, our final season on the Save. Ended up in 11th position, which is actually a really decent position considering how badly it all started. We were unbeaten for the first 2 games, a dire 0-0 draw away at Bournemouth, and a fairly dire 1-0 home victory over West Bromwich Albion. Craig Dawson scoring the only goal on that one. Before we started to lose some games of football, we didn't pick up another point in the league until the 19th of October when we beat Swansea away from home. Joe Wright scoring that one, a game we really had to win at that stage of the season. A couple more victories followed, but we really did struggle to find any sort of regular league consistency until we hit January. And we won 3 games in January, doing all right, not conceding any goals. Then a bit of a wobble in February. We were looking over our shoulder. We could see the relegation zone. It was smiling at us. It was waving. Then we played Watford and Reading, 2 games in a week, won them both, and it just eased the pressure a little bit. Got us 8 points clear at that stage. We knew we had Arsenal and Man United coming up, and we knew we were going to lose to them anyway, so we weren't overly concerned when we lost both of those 3-0. Then we entertained West Ham, which was a must-win game, and we almost did it. But as they were below us in the table, a point proved to be good enough. We then went to Liverpool. No, we didn't. Liverpool came to us, and we won that 2-0. Beat QPR, beat Crystal Palace. We won't mention the Leicester game, as that was a 4-0 thumping, which is disappointing, but it always seems to happen when we play Leicester. And ultimately, we were awarded the biggest overachiever in the league, even though it feels like we've had a bad season. But we finished 11th. That's not bad. That's mid-table. We were relegation favourites yet again, but we finished mid-table, so that's a positive end to the Save for my books. A little bit more green would have been nice. Maybe a European campaign as well, but We take what we are given in life. It felt going into this season, go big or go home on transfers. We went big. We brought in Will Hughes for £20 million. Look at those attributes. Physically strong, mentally strong, technically strong. Probably the best all-round player we've got. 26 games, 1 goal. Good player. Made his England debut as well. Average rating wise, potentially a little bit disappointing, 6.86, but it's his first season for us at the club. Only his second season at this level. Lots of potential to improve as we go forward, as he's only 25 years old, so he's starting to hit his peak. Good player, will continue to be a good player for us going forward. Same can be said for Cameron Borthwick-Jackson, left back / centre back that I've got in from Manchester United. Good, solid player. Struggled a little bit mid-season with a bit of a form wobble, but came back in towards the end of the season. Did all right. Charlie Austin, really strong performer for us. Only got 8 goals in 31 games, but I didn't think I had the striker option quite right for us this season, so our strikers did struggle to score goals. So a little bit disappointing for his return, but for £3 million, it's a decent record for a guy. If you look at his previous seasons, hasn't done particularly well. Didn't have any major injuries as well, which was a real bonus for us. Good player, did all right. Patrick Roberts came in from Manchester City on a season-long loan. We've signed him again for next season. Really versatile, anywhere across that attacking three. Can also drop back into midfield if required. 34 games, 6 goals. It cost us 1.7 million for the season, which is a bargain for the Premier League. Real positive player. Got some vital goals, only 23. Will improve as we go forward as well. And then my final signing, Harry Maguire, centre-back. This was the sign that convinced me to carry on for next season. Offline, I thought I could just carry on to the end of the season, not make any signings, or I could go big for next season, and I went big with Harry Maguire. 12 games played, centre-back, strong, good physicals, decent mentals. Technically not that great with the ball at his feet, but heading, marking, tackling, really, really strong. Good player. Will do a good job for us going forward. So there we are, guys. The end of the journey. 42 episodes, my longest save on Football Manager by far. Daily content as well, which was the big objective going into this save. I've done 42 episodes on 42 days in a row. Real positive, that, I think. And I'm starting to see it in the subscribers. They are gradually increasing. I'm now on 16. I started with 5. So I've trebled my subscribers in one save, which is really positive. And the views are not bad either. All my videos are getting at least 3 or 4 views, which doesn't sound that impressive, but it's a start. That's where we are, at the start of a long Football Manager YouTube journey. Join me again for Football Manager 18, or attempt to be Arsene Wenger's replacement until I get sacked, which I would imagine will be fairly quickly. I've got 2 or 3 ideas for Football Manager 18. The first of them is the Arsene Wenger save for the beta. Then we get into the full game. I'm thinking legacy. I'm thinking somewhere in Europe. I'm still thinking, so I haven't got confirmed teams or countries yet. But hopefully it'll be a really long save. Daily content is the aim. If you've liked what you've seen, please do leave a like. If you're liking what I'm doing, please do subscribe and join in the fun. Any comments gratefully appreciated. I've been the FM Novice, and I'll talk to you again very soon for Football Manager 18. Have a good evening. I'll speak to you again very soon. Thank you very much and good night.